the chat. Write in the chat for me if you're not driving. Write in the chat for me something you can do today that you couldn't do, say, in last year, 2021. You know, when we're young, we just do new things all the time. I watched my son go to his second year of first practice yesterday in baseball, and he couldn't get out of the car fast enough, just skipping. He didn't know a darn thing about baseball, but he was just so excited and so fired up. You know, you think about all the different things you learn when you're young. When we get a little older, that slows down. And with that slows down some inspiration, quite frankly, right? So write in the chat that I'm just curious. Who knows the difference between a cow and an eagle? Probably don't think about it much, but a cow spends their day looking at the dirt and the asses of other cows. And an eagle spends its day stalking its prey, moving across big swaths of the land, you know, seeing beautiful scenery. I mean, what a life. And so you sort of have to ask yourself, how do you get inspired to do new things and to be an eagle and not a cow? It's so easy to get into the mundane part of life. But if one grazes all day, all you're really doing is looking at the dirt. So where does your inspiration come from? That's today's question. And the answer is, especially for all of you who are coaches and so successful and have so much time you spend helping others, the truth is it has to come from you. So I want to be a little bit vulnerable here and tell you for a few minutes about my life story. So I'm 65 years old, as many of you know. I know you can't believe it, Catherine, when you look at me, but I'm 65. And for the better part of the last 30 years, you know, I set goals, and by the 12th or 15th of the month, I had chucked those goals, Ed. I wasn't getting anything accomplished. So last year, I remember my infinite wisdom, I decided I wasn't going to set any goals. Why set goals if you weren't going to keep them, and if it was by the 20th of the month, you'd already given up on them? And I just think, can you imagine the person leading a company not setting any goals? I think about how I let my members down, because every year for 8 years, I had done a goal-setting exercise, but we didn't do it last year because I had decided that goal-setting was ridiculous. That was me. But for some reason, this year has been different. And maybe it's turning 65. I don't know. I turned 65 last May, and for the first 5 or 6, 7 months of that year, Catherine, all I did is try to talk myself out of, I was no way I was 65. I was stuck on 35 for the last 35 years. And with that comes a certain mentality that I don't think really serves us. You know, I could always wait to set a goal at 35. I could wait to read a book. I could wait to attend a seminar. I could wait to listen to business blogs. I could wait to make a contribution. I had a lot of time left. But then something crazy happens. And when you get to be my age, there's a tragedy with my network. I promise you, it seems like every 24 hours. Whether it's a franchise owner diagnosed with horrible bone cancer, which we have, whether it's another franchise owner who has like life-threatening breast cancer and has to have a double mastectomy and being delayed for over 6 weeks by Western medicine to where the cancer got so bad that they couldn't do the surgery, whether it's the urgent need for a franchise owner who had a massive heart attack who really probably shouldn't be here today, another franchise owner's house burning, franchise owners with such severe mental health issues they can hardly get out of bed, my best friend's husband dropping dead last week at 65, just woke up in the morning, he was dead. All of a sudden, you know, life starts to make a difference. And sort of for me, it's like time to grow up. So here's where I'm going to be a little vulnerable. I'm not an alcoholic, Dr. Roundtree, but I like my scotch and wine. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I drink my scotch and wine most every night. 1 or 2, not enough to be drunk, not enough to impair my ability to work. I'm here early every day. But typically what I did was, after the kids and wife went to bed at 9 o'clock, I sat there alone and either had Oreos and milk. This was my go-to. 3 or 4 Oreos or milk, just enough to make the sugar in my body not let me sleep well. Or maybe on Tuesday night, I would do the red wine, a glass or two, or Wednesday night, a couple of scotches. But whatever it was, I was sitting there watching CNN and Fox, bitching about the state of our country and bitching about how fast my children's lives were going by where I wasn't involved with them. So I decided I was going to put it up this year. Now, the first 10 or 12 days, I didn't do too good. But instead of quitting, I said, okay, I'm going to make a commitment. I'm really going to do this. So since around the 12th of January, I've stopped 100% quit. Don't do it at all. Haven't had any. So now I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock. And now I'm getting up when the kids get up at 6:30 instead of 7:15. So instead of a little kiss on the cheek goodbye while I nod off to try to grab the last 30 or 40 minutes of terrible sleep, I'm up enjoying the excitement of a child that only, unless you have kids, you just can't understand how much fun it is in the morning when they're so excited about their day for no reason. You know, there's nothing going on special. They're just going back to school with their friends. To me, that sounds like the typical exact definition of insanity. Drink the scotch, complain about my life, complain about what's going on, don't change anything, create an environment where I'm missing out on more of their life. And with one small change, all that goes away. So with a little bit of inspiration, a written goal, and a commitment, basically, I've been able to drastically change what's going on. And I've traded those lost hours for an extra hour in the morning with them, like I mentioned. Breakfast with them, like their laughter and enjoying that. But more importantly, I've been inspired to do these 10-minute talks, which has made me be more prepared by reading more books, listening to more blogs, attending more Zooms that are offered to me by people that I admire, talking to people on very serious discussions, which I believe will sign a joint venture with India in the next 5 days that have really been propelled in the last 2 weeks. See, we can write books, but do we read books? A lot of us do blogs, but do we listen to other blogs? Some of us make podcasts, but do we listen to podcasts? You can beg your members to go on one-to-ones, but do you go on a one-to-one? You can beg your members to post or answer the questions that we're now posting to members, but do you post? You can plead with your members to show up for your monthly meetings, but do you show up prepared and ready and full of excitement? So where does your inspiration come from? It has to come from you. And there's an ancient Hindu parable that goes like this. I hope I don't mess it up. Burma is the head god. And one of the gods says to Burma, where should we hide this inspiration, this meaning of life? And the God says we should bury it at the very top of the mountain. They'll never be able to get there. And Burma thinks about it. He says, no, someday they'll scale that mountain and they'll get that. Another God says, let's just dive down and put it in the deepest part of the ocean. And Burma's like, no, they'll someday find that. And the other God said, I'll tell you what, we'll excavate and we'll bury it in the deepest part of the earth. And of course, Burma said, no, man will someday find that. And finally, after some time, Burma said, let's bury it deep within man or woman themselves, because they'll never think to look there. I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank y'all for being with me. See you next week.